Hello and welcome. The Platinum Dragon has walked among mortals wearing the face of a humble beggar, his true nature concealed behind frail flesh and tattered robes, while 7 golden-feathered canaries perched on his shoulders and sang their innocent songs. Kings have turned away this wanderer. Without knowing, they denied an audience with one of the most powerful deities in the multiverse. Tyrants have mocked this old man, never realizing the true power standing before them. This is the secret art of Bahamut, the method by which the king of good dragons has shaped the fate of countless worlds without ever revealing his hand. The patient strategy that has toppled tyrannies while their architects still believed themselves untouchable. The multiverse knows Bahamut as the Lord of the North Wind, the Platinum Dragon, the deity of metallic dragons, who rules from his magnificent platinum palace as it drifts through the gleaming slopes of Mount Celestia. You have heard the hymns that praise his justice, the legends that speak of his eternal conflict with Tiamat, queen of chromatic dragons. But there exists another dimension to this ancient being that rarely surfaces in temple prayers or bardic songs. Bahamut is not merely a warrior deity who confronts evil with righteous fury. He operates with a subtlety that many would not expect from a draconic god. Understanding that the most lasting victories against tyranny come not from overwhelming divine intervention, but from empowering mortals to claim their own freedom. When Bahamut walks the material plane in disguise, he takes the form of a venerable silver-bearded man in long robes, accompanied by 7 golden-feathered canaries that freely rest on his shoulders. This elderly wanderer appears so unremarkable that guards wave him through gates without a second glance, so harmless that tyrants dismiss him without concern. Yet those 7 canaries represent something far more significant than simple birds. Some scholars who have encountered fragmentary references to this disguise have noted the symbolic importance of the number 7, which appears repeatedly in Bahamut's iconography and organization. This preference for disguise reveals a fundamental aspect of Bahamut's philosophy. He could manifest in his true form, a dragon of such immense size, and power that his platinum scales glow with a faint blue sheen. He could unleash devastating breath weapons or summon legions of metallic dragons to crush his enemies. But such displays of power would achieve only temporary victories. A tyrant slain by obvious divine might become a martyr. Mortals rescued by overwhelming force never learn that they possess the strength to save themselves. Instead, Bahamut has spent millennia working in ways that leave mortal agency intact, ensuring that when freedom is won, those who fought for it can claim that victory as their own. The relationship between Bahamut and Tiamat stretches back to the earliest days of dragonkind, an eternal conflict between siblings that has shaped the fate of countless worlds. According to sacred texts, both Bahamut and his sister Tiamat were born of the blood of Asgorath, also known as Io, the progenitor god of all dragonkind. Their opposing philosophies, one favoring justice and protection, the other demanding domination and tyranny, have driven conflicts that span tens of thousands of years. The Dragonfall Wars represent the most extensive manifestation of this eternal struggle. The first of these wars began in the year -29,500 Dale Reckoning, during the time of Dragon's Era, when followers of Bahamut, who was known as Zymer at the time, attacked and slew Nagamat, a worm general in Tiamat's service. This event sparked a far-reaching conflict between the followers of both dragon deities. Tiamat created draconic aberrations to aid her followers, twisted creatures bred specifically for war. Bahamut responded by gifting his most devout followers with the ability to transform themselves into Dragonborn, creating a race known as the Ux Bahamuti, who served as his mortal emissaries. The conflict reached a catastrophic climax in the ancient Unthuric Empire on the world of Toril. At some point, Bahamut had taken the alias Marduk within the Unthuric Pantheon, establishing himself as a deity of cities, wind, thunder, storms, and rain. When Gilgim, the god king of Undr, was attacked by Tiamat, Bahamut, in his Marduk aspect, intervened and struck his sister. In destroying her Unthuric aspect, he destroyed his own as well. Both dragon deities were stripped of their divinity, their Unthuric manifestations rendered dead. Bahamut was reduced to the status of a celestial paragon, wandering Faerun as an avatar, while Tiamat fell to the status of an archfiend and was given space in Avernus by the devil Asmodeus. This sacrifice demonstrates the lengths to which Bahamut will go to prevent absolute tyranny from taking hold. He accepted the loss of his full divinity, accepted centuries of diminished power, because allowing Tiamat's plans to succeed would have created suffering on a scale that dwarfed his personal losses. For a deity to willingly become reduced to avatar status represents one of the most profound sacrifices possible in the divine order. The process of rebuilding his divine status required patience and the gradual cultivation of new worship. Bahamut wandered Faerun as an avatar, having been summoned by his faithful in the year of the Bloodbird, 1346 Dale Reckoning. That same year marked a pivotal moment in his recovery. Citizens of Damara brought to him the tree gem, an artifact of great significance. Bahamut gave it back to them, and a ritual of auspicious tidings was performed in which Gareth Dragonsbane, the future king of Damara, planted the tree gem in the soil of Damara. With the planting of this relic, the king of good dragons pledged to protect the kingdom of Damara from the influence of demons so long as Damara remained an ally of good and justice. This ritual served as a rallying call that renewed the Church of Bahamut among the non-human races, enabling the Platinum Dragon to regain some of his lost divinity. His worship grew in the decades following the time of troubles, when he fully regained his divine status, as non-dragons began to take interest in his teachings. The increase in divine stature came with expanded responsibilities, made more challenging by the harsh circumstances that followed. After the spell plague reshaped the divine landscape of Faerun, Bahamut entered into a significant alliance with Torm, the god of duty and loyalty. Torm promoted Bahamut to the same position Torm once occupied while serving Tyr, and Bahamut became a temporary member of the Triad itself, replacing Tyr until his return after the Second Sundering in the 1480s Dale Reckoning, when Bahamut became a subservient deity to Torm after the spell plague. Many Tormites also paid homage to Bahamut as well, and it was not uncommon for both gods to lend their strength to worshippers of either deity at the same time. The king of good dragons remained in his seat of authority in the Triad, alongside Torm and Ilmater for about a century, until Tyr was restored to his former glory. The Triad remained a close ally of Bahamut afterwards, though the Draco Paladin was glad to be able to commit more of his attention to personal affairs and trouble brewing for his faithful. As a comrade in arms of Torm, both deities have battled side by side against evil gods and devils on many occasions. This partnership proves particularly effective against tyrannical deities like Bane, the god of tyranny itself, and Cyric, the mad god of murder and lies. When examining the historical patterns of how tyrannical power structures have collapsed, often from internal rebellion rather than external conquest, one could reasonably infer that such consistent patterns might reflect more than simple chance or the natural instability of oppressive regimes. From his Platinum Palace, which drifts through the first 4 layers of Mount Celestia, Bahamut maintains what his closest servants call the Eternal Watch. This palace is unlike any other divine realm in the 7 mounting heavens of Celestia. It is a floating fortress constructed entirely from his enormous treasure hoard, with walls made of mithril and windows composed of huge gemstones. The palace has few roofs, but many gilded and silvered columns standing around countless platforms and open forums where Bahamut holds court. The structure's ability to move between the layers of Mount Celestia makes it one of the few means of accessing the higher levels without requiring occupants to pass the trials of enlightenment that separate each layer. Inside this magnificent palace, 7 gold dragons of incredible age and power serve as Bahamut's chief attendants. These ancient worms are known as the 7 great gold worms. Curia the eye, Songrad the wing, Groomer the voice, Marishok the tail, Tronaxia the presence, and Urgala the Fang. Each has demonstrated wisdom accumulated over millennia and brings unique skills to Bahamut's service. Groomer the Voice serves as Bahamut's negotiator, a slender great worm known for preferring words of peace over blood and claw. Curia the Eye handles tasks demanding secrecy and stealth, a sleek and serpentine dragon who can be suspicious and threatening even to those she knows well. Marishak the Tail serves as Bahamut's genial but formidable bodyguard. Songgrad the Wing acts as Bahamut's messenger, a thrill-seeker and explorer. Tronaxia, the Presence is sent when intimidation becomes necessary. Urgala the Fang leads and commands Bahamut's armies. While his court comprised only gold dragons, Bahamut enjoyed the company of all good dragons, delighting in their differences and varied personalities. Large numbers of metallic dragons live in Mount Celestia, mostly focused around the Platinum Palace. To be chosen by the Platinum Dragon to serve in such fashion is the dream of many metallic dragons as they grow old and accumulate wisdom. Beyond the dragons, Bahamut's network includes paladins, clerics, and champions. The Talons of Justice, an order of dragon paladins dedicated to Bahamut, followed the Tarian Code, a draconic code of honor created in ancient times by the gold dragon Taurus. Originally intended as conduct for lords who attended the King of Justice, the Tarian Code was eventually adopted by many gold and silver dragons and their mortal allies. It included paying homage to Bahamut and major precepts about protecting the weak, acting with honor, and opposing tyranny wherever it took root. Bahamut's allies included good dragons, half-dragons, dragonborn both Abaran and ancient ones, and good draconic creatures. His antithesis was Tiamat, as both of them represented opposing values, and this enmity was reflected in the attitude of each deity's worshippers as well. The question that troubles some theologians is how much influence Bahamut truly exerts over events versus how much simply reflects the natural consequences of tyranny, generating its own opposition. His defenders argue that he creates conditions where freedom becomes possible without removing mortal choice. A slave still chooses to rebel or remain in chains. A general still decides to follow orders or turn against a cruel master. This distinction matters in the cosmic order, potentially separating his methods from the manipulations of evil deities. As you begin to perceive patterns in how tyrannies fall and freedoms emerge across the ages, you might wonder about the role of divine intervention versus natural historical forces. The answer likely contains elements of both. Based on what we can observe throughout history, Bahamut appears to work with natural tendencies toward freedom rather than imposing artificial solutions. How many dark ages have been shortened? how many tyrannical empires have crumbled earlier than they might have otherwise. The numbers span thousands of worlds, millions of lives, potentially affected through interventions subtle enough to preserve the appearance that mortals achieved their own victories through courage and strength alone. Section 2. Threads in the Darkness. You might believe that tyrannical gods operate in isolation, each building their empire of fear and oppression through their own methods and strength. The historical record reveals a far more complex web of alliances, rivalries, and shifting power dynamics that shape how tyranny manifests across the multiverse. When examining how these dark powers have been opposed and contained throughout history, patterns emerge that suggest coordination beyond what individual resistance movements could achieve alone. Whether this reflects Bahamut's influence or simply the natural tendency of tyranny to generate its own opposition remains a matter of scholarly interpretation. Consider Bane, the Black Lord, the Black Hand, the Lord of Darkness. He embodies tyrannical oppression in its purest form, a deity who believes that all of Faerun, all mortals within it, and even the gods themselves should bow before him. Bane's methods prove more sophisticated than simple brutality. He does not accept failure and will torture even his most loyal servants to ensure complete obedience. Yet, he only does this when absolutely necessary. He is slow to anger and prefers not to use brute force if it is not needed, which makes him far more dangerous than gods who rule through random cruelty. This calculated approach to tyranny has made him one of the most enduring threats to freedom throughout Faerunian history. The origins of Bane reveal certain vulnerabilities that have shaped his conflicts with good-aligned powers. Bane was once mortal, a human who began life as a nameless street thug in Calamshan, and rose to become a legendary adventurer. He set out with his companions Baal and Merkel to claim the godhood of Jurgal, Faerunian god of strife, death, and the dead. When they finally confronted Jurgal, the world-weary deity willingly abdicated his portfolios. After a game of knucklebones, each of the three adventurers took 1/3 of Jurgal's power. Bane claimed strife and transformed it into the portfolio of tyranny, hatred, fear, and hate. This ascension through a game of chance rather than through millennia of divine evolution meant that Bane had to learn the responsibilities and limitations of godhood while already possessing immense power. During the time of troubles in 1358 Dale Reckoning, when gods walked Faerun in mortal form, Bane was slain by the mortal Cyric. For years afterward, his son Iatu Zivim attempted to claim his father's domain of tyranny. This period of divine absence created chaos among the forces dedicated to oppression. Historical records show that numerous tyrannical regimes collapsed during this time, that rebellions against Banite overlords succeeded with unusual frequency, that the Church of Bane fractured into competing factions. Whether these patterns simply reflected the natural consequence of losing divine patronage, or whether other powers took advantage of Bane's absence to strike at his weakened followers, remains a subject of theological debate. When Bane eventually returned in 1372 Dale Reckoning, consuming his own son Zevihim to reclaim his divine status and portfolio, he found his power base significantly eroded. Many of his most capable servants had died in conflicts during his absence. The mortal empires that had worshipped him had been overthrown or reformed. Bane's return marked not a moment of triumph, but the beginning of a long, difficult rebuilding process. One could reasonably observe that this pattern, where a tyrannical deity's absence creates opportunities for freedom that persist even after the deity's return, has repeated throughout history with various dark powers. Cyric, the Prince of Lies, the Dark Sun, presents a different manifestation of tyrannical power, where Bane operates with calculated precision. Cyric thrives on chaos, deception, and madness. He began as a mortal, a mercenary and assassin who ascended to godhood during the time of troubles by murdering both Bane and Baal and claiming portions of their divine portfolios. He later murdered Mystra and caused the spell plague, throwing the cosmos into turmoil in an act that cost him much of his following. Cyric's church is pledged to spread strife and work murder everywhere to make folk believe in and fear the Dark Sun. His followers often engage in internal feuds and backstabbing, a reflection of their god's chaotic nature. The creation of the Tyrannical demonstrates both Cyric's madness and the consequences of unchecked divine arrogance. Cyric created this magical tome to proclaim himself the one true deity, a book so powerful that anyone who read it would believe its claims. In an act of supreme hubris, Cyric read his own book, which cost him his sanity and led to the loss of Merkel's former portfolio of the dead to Kelimver. Historical accounts attribute this catastrophe to Cyric's own arrogance, though some scholars have noted the peculiar timing and circumstances that led to the book's creation and Cyric's decision to read it. The imprisonment of Cyric following the spell plague represents one of the most significant containments of a tyrannical deity in recent history. In 1385 Dale Reckoning, in retaliation for his murder of Mystra, which sparked the spell plague, Lathander, Tyr, and Sune trapped Cyric in the supreme throne for 1,000 years. This coalition of deities representing dawn and renewal, justice and love, respectively, seems an unlikely alliance. Lathander, as a deity of new beginnings, would naturally oppose Cyric's destructive madness, but organizing a coordinated divine response would have required significant diplomatic effort. Tyr focused on justice and law, and Sune, goddess of beauty and love, each had their own concerns and priorities. Yet all three came together at precisely the right moment, each bringing unique divine powers that together accomplished what none could achieve alone. Hexter, the herald of hell, the champion of evil, the scourge of battle, represents tyranny in the Greyhawk sphere. He is a brutal and effective warmonger, seeking to bring all lands under his dominion. Unlike Bane, who rules through calculated fear, or Cyric, who thrives on chaos, Hexter is the patron of war for power, territory, conquest, and bloodshed. He uses war to chew up the weak and unfit, salvaging the strong and worthy so they might serve him and expand his reach. His philosophy holds that tyranny and the dominance of strength are absolute goods. The eternal conflict between Hexter and his half-brother Erroneus provides a natural counterbalance to tyrannical expansion. Their mother, stern Aelia, goddess of law and motherhood, gave her blessings to Erroneus instead of Hexter, starting Hexter's slide into evil. This sibling rivalry has driven thousands into their graves over the centuries, as their followers wage an eternal war, reflecting their gods' hatred for one another. When examining historical records of conflicts between Hexter's tyrannical forces and Erroneus's champions of valor, certain patterns appear with notable consistency. Erroneus's followers often receive timely intelligence about enemy movements, discover weapons particularly suited to countering Hexter's dark magic, or benefit from weather changes that disrupt enemy supply lines at critical moments. Whether these patterns reflect divine intervention, natural fortune, or the simple fact that just causes inspire more dedicated service remains open to interpretation. Beyond these individual tyrannical deities, the broader networks through which tyranny spreads deserve examination. Evil gods rarely operate in complete isolation. The dead three, Bane, Baal, and Merkel, demonstrated how tyrannical deities can divide power among themselves to avoid direct conflict while still advancing their individual agendas. They ascended together after claiming Jurgel's portfolios, each taking a portion that complemented the others. This alliance allowed them to support each other's schemes while maintaining distinct spheres of influence. The time of troubles shattered this alliance when Cyric slew both Bane and Baal. When Bane eventually returned, having consumed his own son, Zevahim, to reclaim his divine status, he found that the old partnership could not be restored. Merkel had been destroyed by the hero Midnight. Baal remained dead with his essence scattered, and Cyric had proven too mad and treacherous to trust. Based on what we know about divine politics and the documented conflicts between Cyric's followers and those loyal to the returned Bane, we can infer that the dissolution of the Dead Three's alliance significantly weakened the coordinated threat that tyrannical powers could pose to freedom-loving peoples. Bahamut's relationship with mortal champions reveals another dimension of how tyranny has been opposed throughout history. The Platinum Dragon does not simply empower heroes and send them to battle evil. Historical accounts suggest a more subtle approach. Champions often emerge from unlikely backgrounds, receiving opportunities to develop their courage and skills over years or decades before facing their greatest challenges. A young person who stands up to local bullies might later become a paladin who opposes tyrannical regimes. A scholar researching ancient history might discover texts containing information crucial to understanding a dark god's vulnerabilities. These champions frequently report never knowing they served any coordinated purpose. A paladin might swear oaths to Torm, Helm, or another god of justice, completing quests that happen to undermine tyrannical powers without recognizing any larger pattern. A wizard might believe their discoveries result from their own brilliance, rather than from being guided toward particular books and scrolls. A rogue might think they chose to steal certain artifacts on impulse, not understanding that rumors and opportunities had been carefully arranged to make those particular targets attractive. This pattern, where individuals achieve significant victories against tyranny while believing the accomplishments are entirely their own, appears throughout the historical record with sufficient frequency to suggest either remarkable coincidence or subtle coordination by powers that prefer to remain unseen. The Dragonfall Wars demonstrate how mortal champions coordinated across vast scales of time and space to oppose tyrannical visions of draconic supremacy. While the wars began with conflicts between dragon followers of Bahamut and Tiamat, they evolved to include mortal races who had to choose which philosophy they would support. Bahamut's gift of dragonborn transformation to his most devout followers created warriors who fought not because they were created for war or compelled to serve, but because they chose to embrace ideals of justice and honor. This fundamental difference in motivation, choosing to fight for ideals versus being forced to fight through creation or domination, appears to have influenced the war's ultimate outcome. The relationship between Bahamut and his metallic dragon followers provides a network uniquely suited to long-term strategies against tyranny. Dragons live for centuries, sometimes millennia, giving them the patience to execute plans that would require dozens of human lifetimes. A gold dragon might spend 200 years establishing itself as a trusted advisor to a royal bloodline, subtly guiding that dynasty toward just rule. A silver dragon might use shape-shifting abilities to infiltrate a tyrannical organization, spending decades rising through the ranks until reaching a position where a single act of sabotage could cripple the entire structure. Historical records document numerous instances of tyrannical regimes collapsing due to internal betrayal by trusted advisors who later revealed themselves as metallic dragons in disguise. The consistency of this pattern, where dragons appear at critical junctures to prevent tyranny from achieving permanent dominance, suggests either extraordinary good fortune for freedom-loving peoples or a level of coordination that exceeds what individual dragons acting independently would likely achieve. When you examine the full scope of how tyrannical deities have been opposed throughout history, through divine alliances, mortal champions, and draconic agents, a picture emerges of persistent, patient resistance that operates across multiple levels simultaneously. Whether this coordination originates from a single source or simply reflects the natural tendency of tyranny to generate its own opposition remains a matter of scholarly debate. What remains clear from the historical record is that tyranny, no matter how powerful or well-organized, consistently faces resistance that emerges at critical moments to prevent absolute domination. Tyrants who believe they are seizing power through their own cunning often discover that their path to the throne was observed from the beginning, that every step toward dominance also brought them closer to the circumstances of their downfall. This pattern has repeated across thousands of years and countless worlds with sufficient consistency to suggest that forces beyond simple chance work to ensure that oppression contains within itself the seeds of its own destruction. Section 3. The Web of Dragons. The metallic dragons who serve Bahamut are not merely followers who worship from afar. They form a network that spans the multiverse, with dragons living for centuries or millennia, providing continuity of purpose that mortal organizations cannot match. When you see a gold dragon advising a king, when you hear tales of a silver dragon walking among mortals in human form, when rumors speak of a bronze dragon patrolling coastlines against pirate threats, you are witnessing individual threads in a pattern so vast that even the dragons themselves may not fully comprehend its scope. This network extends across planes and worlds, creating an intelligence gathering and intervention apparatus built not through forced servitude, but through genuine devotion to ideals of justice and freedom. Gold dragons occupy the apex of this network, and from among their ranks come the 7 most trusted advisors who serve directly in Bahamut's Platinum Palace. These 7 great gold worms have demonstrated wisdom accumulated over millennia and proven their commitment to Bahamut's philosophy through countless acts of service. While historical sources identify them as Curia the Eye, Songrad the Wing, Groomer the Voice, Marishok the Tail, Tronaxia the Presence, and Argala the Fang, with some accounts also mentioning Vanathar the Golden Harpist, the specific dragons holding these positions may change over the ages, as even ancient worms eventually fall in service or move on to other roles. Groomer the Voice serves as Bahamut's chief negotiator, a slender great worm known for preferring words of peace over blood and claw. When diplomatic solutions might prevent conflict, when potential allies need convincing, when neutral parties must be swayed to oppose rising tyranny, Groomer flies forth from the Platinum Palace, bearing Bahamut's words. His negotiations, as recorded in various historical accounts, often seem to offer generous terms that nevertheless serve larger strategic purposes. Curia the Eye handles tasks demanding secrecy and stealth, a sleek and serpentine dragon who can be suspicious and threatening even to those she knows well. Her paranoia serves her well when gathering intelligence on potential threats. Historical records contain numerous accounts of tyrannical plots discovered and thwarted, though the sources of the intelligence that exposed these schemes often remain mysteriously vague. Whether Curia's network of informants accounts for such discoveries remains a matter of speculation among those who study draconic involvement in mortal affairs. Marishok the Tail serves as Bahamut's bodyguard, though this role extends beyond simply protecting the platinum dragon himself. Marishok is genial but formidable, a massive dragon whose size and strength make him an imposing presence. Chronicles from various kingdoms contain accounts of gold dragons appearing at critical moments to shield individuals from threats they could not survive alone. Interventions that seem remarkably well-timed given the distances involved and the challenges of knowing when such aid would be needed. Songred the Wing acts as Bahamut's messenger, a thrill-seeker and explorer, who Bahamut wisely gives time off to investigate new places after completing her missions. She carries orders to distant agents and brings back reports from far corners of the multiverse. Her love of exploration makes her well suited for this role, as she never tires of flying to remote locations to check on long-term operations. Tronaxia, the presence is sent when diplomatic words fail and intimidation becomes necessary. Her shining presence, the overwhelming aura of power and majesty that surrounds her, is enough to make even powerful beings reconsider their choices. Historical accounts describe moments when would-be tyrants suddenly abandoned their plans after receiving visits from magnificent gold dragons, whose very appearance communicated the magnitude of opposition such tyranny would invoke. Argala the Fang leads and commands Bahamut's armies on those rare occasions when military force becomes necessary. She is proud and uncompromising, flying above the troops to scout enemy positions and direct tactics. Argala understands that military victory is only valuable if it serves the larger goal of creating lasting peace and justice. Vanather the Golden Harpist, in those accounts that mention him, serves as Bahamut's advisor and bard, a gold dragon with a swirl of rainbow colors upon his breast, who preserves the histories and songs that chronicle struggles against tyranny. He knows the stories of every major victory against evil, every tyrant who has fallen, every dark scheme that has been thwarted. This historical knowledge proves invaluable in recognizing when old tyrannical strategies are being attempted in new contexts. Beyond these 7 great worms, large numbers of metallic dragons live in Mount Celestia, mostly focused around the Platinum Palace. To be chosen by the Platinum Dragon to serve in such fashion is the dream of many metallic dragons as they grow old and accumulate wisdom. While Bahamut's court comprised only gold dragons, he enjoyed the company of all good dragons, delighting in their differences and varied personalities. Gold dragons may be the most regal and powerful, but Bahamut loved all metallic dragons equally, and all were welcome in his floating palace. Silver dragons prove particularly valuable for certain types of operations due to their love of humanoid company and their exceptional shapeshifting abilities. Unlike some dragons who view time spent in humanoid form as a disguise to be endured, silver dragons genuinely enjoy living among humans, elves, and other mortal races. A silver dragon might spend its entire adult life living as a human noble, raising families, serving in government, all while subtly steering policy away from tyrannical impulses and toward just governance. These dragons often develop genuine affection for the mortal communities they protect, which makes their service more effective because it comes from authentic care rather than duty alone. Bronze dragons, with their natural affinity for water and coastlines, monitor maritime trade and work to prevent piracy from becoming organized enough to threaten legitimate commerce. They sometimes appear as sea captains, harbor masters, or wandering sailors, gathering information about naval movements and smuggling operations. Historical maritime records contain numerous accounts of mysterious assistance received by merchant vessels threatened by pirates, of blockades that failed due to seemingly fortunate weather patterns, of trade routes that remained open despite attempts to close them through naval force. Copper dragons, with their love of pranks and wordplay, have certain natural talents that can prove useful in undermining the dignity and authority that tyrants use to maintain control. A copper dragon disguised as a court jester might tell jokes that subtly question a ruler's policies, planting seeds of doubt in the minds of nobles and courtiers. Historical accounts suggest that laughter can be a powerful weapon against oppression because it breaks the spell of terror that tyrants cast over their subjects. Once people can laugh at their oppressor, they begin to see that the tyrant is merely mortal, fallible, and ultimately vulnerable. Brass dragons, often dismissed as frivolous due to their love of conversation, actually possess qualities that make them excellent intelligence gatherers. Their endless curiosity and willingness to talk with anyone about anything can extract information from unsuspecting sources. A brass dragon might spend hours chatting with a merchant about seemingly trivial matters. But woven through that conversation are questions that gradually reveal the merchant's connections to supply networks that sustain tyrannical armies. The Platinum Palace itself serves as the central hub for this network, and its unique nature makes it strategically valuable. Unlike other divine realms that remain fixed in a single location, Bahamut's palace drifts through the first 4 layers of Mount Celestia, able to move between these layers without requiring its occupants to pass the trials of enlightenment that normally separate each level. This mobility provides flexibility that other deities lack. If Bahamut needs to consult with powers residing in the higher reaches of Mount Celestia, his palace can ascend. If he needs to interact more directly with mortal petitioners on the lower slopes, his palace can descend. The palace's construction reveals much about Bahamut's nature and priorities. Built entirely from his enormous treasure hoard, with walls of mithril and windows of huge gemstones, it demonstrates the wealth and power at his command. But the palace has few roofs, instead featuring many gilded and silvered columns standing around countless platforms and open forums where Bahamut holds court. This open architecture could be interpreted as symbolizing transparency among his followers, suggesting that those who serve justice should not hide their deliberations behind closed doors. When metallic dragons gather in the palace to receive instructions or report on their activities, they do so in spaces where others can observe and learn. The palace also serves as a place where mortal champions who have earned particular notice might receive guidance. Some paladins and clerics report experiencing vivid dreams of a magnificent palace of platinum and gems, where ancient dragons offered counsel on opposing tyranny without becoming tyrannical themselves. Whether these represent genuine divine visions, symbolic manifestations of the champion's own moral struggles, or something else entirely, remains a subject of theological debate. What remains clear is that champions who report such experiences often demonstrate remarkable wisdom in their subsequent actions against oppressive forces. Across different campaign settings and crystal spheres, dragon networks adapt to local conditions while maintaining their core purpose of opposing tyranny. In the forgotten realms of Faerun, metallic dragons work alongside other good-aligned forces, particularly after Bahamut's alliance with Torm gave him formal status among the Faerunian Pantheon. In Greyhawk, where divine politics operate differently, and gods take more direct roles in mortal affairs, metallic dragons maintain a more visible presence, openly opposing Hexter and supporting champions who fight against tyrannical expansion. In Eberron, where the nature of divinity itself differs and gods do not manifest directly, draconic opposition to tyranny takes more subtle forms, working through ideals and symbols that inspire mortals rather than through direct divine intervention. This adaptability demonstrates wisdom in understanding that opposing tyranny requires different methods in different contexts. What works in one world might fail catastrophically in another. A strategy perfectly suited to a setting where gods walk openly among mortals would be inappropriate in a setting where divine action operates through more subtle channels. Based on observable patterns across multiple campaign settings, metallic dragons appear to study each world carefully before establishing networks there, learning local cultures, understanding the specific forms that tyranny takes, and adapting methods accordingly. Dragon disguises and infiltration represent one of the most documented aspects of how metallic dragons oppose tyranny. Historical records from numerous kingdoms contain accounts of trusted advisors who eventually revealed themselves as gold or silver dragons in disguise after preventing some catastrophe or exposing a tyrant's schemes. When a dragon takes human form and rises to a position of authority within a regime, they gain access to information and decision-making processes that no amount of external observation could reveal. These infiltrations require extraordinary patience and commitment. A dragon might spend centuries building a cover identity, establishing credibility, and working their way into positions of trust and influence. The risk of discovery remains constant, and if exposed, the dragon faces torture and execution while their network of contacts becomes compromised. Yet historical records document numerous instances of metallic dragons volunteering for such dangerous assignments, suggesting a level of dedication to opposing tyranny that transcends concern for personal safety. The patterns visible across these various elements, the 7 great gold worms coordinating from Mount Celestia, the broader network of metallic dragons operating across multiple worlds, the infiltrators spending centuries in deep cover, and the champions receiving guidance through dreams, suggest a level of organization that exceeds what would likely emerge from independent action. Whether this coordination originates from Bahamut's direct guidance or simply reflects shared commitment to common ideals among metallic dragons remains open to interpretation. What the historical record clearly shows is that metallic dragons consistently appear at critical junctures to prevent tyranny from achieving permanent dominance, that their interventions demonstrate remarkable timing and coordination, and that the cumulative effect over millennia has been to ensure that oppression can never achieve total victory over freedom. When you consider the full scope of this network, how it spans worlds and planes, how it operates across timescales measured in centuries, how it adapts to local conditions while maintaining core purposes, you begin to understand why tyrannical powers struggle to achieve lasting dominance. Against mortal resistance alone, tyranny might eventually triumph through superior force and ruthless efficiency. But against a network of immortal dragons who possess centuries of patience, who can infiltrate the highest levels of power, who coordinate their efforts across vast distances, and who genuinely believe in the ideals they fight for, tyranny faces an opponent it can never fully defeat. Every dark scheme, every tyrannical plot, every attempt to crush freedom permanently must contend with the possibility that somewhere in the network, a metallic dragon is already aware and has already begun the patient work of ensuring that the tyranny contains within itself the seeds of its own destruction. Section 4. When tyrants fall. The moment a tyrant realizes their empire is crumbling remains forever significant in the historical record. That instant when absolute certainty transforms into desperate confusion, when the tyrant understands that all their carefully constructed power was built on unstable foundations, marks a turning point not just for that individual regime, but for all who witness it. These moments of downfall are not mere accidents of history or simple victories of good over evil. They represent the culmination of forces, both natural and potentially orchestrated, that began long before the tyrant even rose to power, creating circumstances where the tyrant never sees the web closing around them until escape becomes impossible. The death and return of Bane during the time of troubles provides one of the most instructive examples of how even when tyranny cannot be permanently destroyed, its resurrection comes with significant weaknesses. During that chaotic period in 1358 Dale Reckoning, when gods walked Faerun in mortal form, stripped of much of their divine power, Bane was slain by the mortal Cyric, who then ascended to claim portions of Bane's divine portfolio. For 14 years afterward, Bane existed only as a quasi-deity, his essence preserved, while his son Iatu Zivim attempted to claim his father's domain of tyranny. The historical record shows that Bane's absence created significant chaos among the forces of tyranny. Information about Zivim's weaknesses, about divisions within Bane's church, about opportunities to strike at tyrannical strongholds while their patron god lay dead. All of this intelligence reached champions of good with notable consistency. Paladins found themselves drawn to temples of Bane that were vulnerable in their god's absence. Rebellions against Banite tyrants received unexpected support at critical moments. The Church of Tyranny, which might have smoothly transitioned to Zevahim's leadership, instead fractured into competing factions, as different priests claimed to represent the true vision of their fallen god. When Bane eventually returned in 1372 Dale Reckoning, consuming his own son Zevahim to reclaim his divine status and portfolio, he found his power base significantly eroded. Decades of internal conflict had weakened his church. Many of his most capable servants had died in struggles against other evil deities, or in failed attempts to maintain tyrannical regimes without their gods' full support. The mortal empires that had worshipped him had been overthrown or reformed. Bane's return, which should have been a moment of triumph, instead marked the beginning of a long, difficult rebuilding process. Whether this erosion of his power base during his absence reflected simple natural consequences, or whether other forces took advantage of the opportunity, remains a matter of interpretation. The imprisonment of Cyric following the spell plague demonstrates another approach to containing tyrannical deities. After Cyric murdered Mistra in 1385 Dale Reckoning and sparked the spell plague, an act of such catastrophic evil that it reshaped reality itself, he faced retaliation from other deities. Lathander, Tyr, and Siún trapped Cyric in the supreme throne for 1,000 years. This coalition of deities, representing dawn and renewal, justice, and love, respectively formed at a critical moment to prevent Cyric's madness from causing further cosmic damage. Historical records document the alliance, but provide limited details about how these three very different divine philosophies came to work together so effectively. Lathander, as a deity of renewal and new beginnings, would naturally oppose Cyric's destructive madness, but coordinating a response that required the participation of Tyr and Siún would have demanded significant diplomatic effort. Tyr focused on justice and law, and Siún, goddess of beauty and love. Each had their own concerns and priorities that did not necessarily include confronting mad gods as their primary responsibility. Yet all three came together at precisely the right moment, each bringing unique divine powers that together could accomplish what none could achieve alone. Some scholars who study divine politics have noted that such coordination rarely happens by chance, though proving deliberate orchestration remains impossible given the lack of direct testimony from the participating deities. The Dragonfall Wars stand as perhaps the most extensive example of long-term strategy against tyranny. Conflicts that spanned millennia and reshaped the relationship between dragons and mortal races across multiple worlds. The first of these wars began in negative 29,500 Dale Reckoning, during the time of Dragon's Era, when followers of Bahamut, who was known as Zymer at the time, attacked and slew Nagamat, a worm general in Tiamat's service. This event sparked a far-reaching conflict between the followers of both dragon deities that would continue, with periods of active warfare and uneasy peace for tens of thousands of years. Tiamat's vision for dragonkind centered on domination and supremacy. She believed that dragons, as the most powerful creatures in existence, had not just the right, but the obligation to rule over lesser races. Her philosophy held that tyranny imposed by superior beings was natural order, that mortals should accept draconic rule, even when that rule was cruel and exploitative. To advance this vision during the Dragonfall Wars, she created draconic aberrations, twisted creatures bred specifically for war, and sent them to murder those who worshipped Bahamut. Bahamut's response revealed fundamental differences in philosophy. Rather than creating his own aberrations or simply commanding dragons to fight wars, he gifted his most devout followers with the ability to transform themselves into Dragonborn. This gift carried profound implications. Those who accepted it chose to embrace draconic power, not for personal gain, but to defend ideals of justice and freedom. They transformed themselves voluntarily, understanding the risks and accepting them because they believed the cause was worth any sacrifice. Where Tiamat's forces fought because they were created to fight or compelled to serve, Bahamut's followers fought because they chose to, because they had seen tyranny and decided it must be opposed. The ancient dragonborn race known as the Ux Bahamuti served as mortal emissaries of the Platinum Dragon. Historical records suggest that this difference in motivation, choosing to fight for ideals versus being forced to fight through creation or domination, influenced the long-term trajectory of the conflicts. Tiamat's aberrations were powerful but inflexible, capable of following orders, but unable to adapt when situations changed. They could not inspire others, could not build lasting alliances, could not create the networks of support that sustained resistance across decades and centuries. Bahamut's Dragonborn, by contrast, became leaders and heroes within their communities. They married, raised families, built institutions that outlasted individual lives. The climax of one phase of these conflicts came in the ancient Unthuric Empire on Toril. Bahamut had taken the alias Marduk within the Unthuric Pantheon, establishing himself as a deity of cities, wind, thunder, storms, and rain. When Gilgim, the god king of Undr, was attacked by Tiamat, Bahamut, in his Marduk aspect, intervened and struck his sister. In destroying her Unthuric aspect, he destroyed his own as well. Both dragon deities were stripped of their divinity in that pantheon, their Unthuric manifestations rendered dead. This sacrifice demonstrates the lengths to which Bahamut accepted personal cost to prevent absolute tyranny from taking hold. He accepted the loss of his full divinity, accepted centuries of diminished power, because allowing Tiamat's plans to succeed in Undr would have created suffering on a scale that dwarfed his personal losses. For a deity to willingly become reduced to celestial paragon status represents one of the most profound sacrifices possible in the divine order. The process of rebuilding divine status after such a sacrifice required extraordinary patience and effort. Bahamut was summoned to Faerun as an avatar by his faithful in 1346 Dale Reckoning, the year of the Bloodbird. That same year, citizens of Damara brought to him the tree gem, an artifact of great significance. Bahamut gave it back to them, and a ritual was performed in which Gareth Dragonsbane, the future king of Damara, planted the tree gem in the soil. With the planting of this relic, the king of good dragons pledged to protect the kingdom of Damara from the influence of demons so long as Damara remained an ally of good and justice. This ritual served as a rallying call that renewed the Church of Bahamut among non-dragon races, enabling the Platinum Dragon to begin regaining his lost divinity. Mount Celestia serves as the staging ground for many operations against tyranny, and the structure of this plane itself supports strategic flexibility. The 7 mounting heavens of Celestia rise in distinct layers, each representing a higher state of spiritual enlightenment, each separated from the next by trials of enlightenment that test those who would ascend. Bahamut's Platinum Palace, with its unique ability to drift through the first 4 layers without requiring its occupants to pass these trials, provides flexibility that other celestial powers lack. He can position his palace on lower slopes when he needs to interact more directly with mortal petitioners, or ascend to higher layers when he requires consultation with more powerful celestial beings. This mobility makes Mount Celestia an advantageous location for coordinating responses to threats across the multiverse. Some champions report experiencing dreams of receiving training or guidance, though whether these represent genuine divine visions, symbolic manifestations of their own wisdom, or other phenomena remains debated among theologians. What remains documented is that champions who report such experiences often demonstrate remarkable skill and wisdom in their subsequent actions against oppressive forces. The plane also serves as a refuge for those who died resisting tyrannical persecution. Good-aligned souls who fell fighting oppression find their way to Mount Celestia's slopes, where they can rest and heal from the trauma of their mortal struggles. Some eventually move on to other rewards or reincarnations, but others choose to remain, joining the ranks of celestial beings who support efforts against tyranny. This transformation of victims into active opponents ensures that sacrifice contributes to larger purposes even after death. prevention of absolute darkness scenarios represents perhaps the most crucial aspect of maintaining cosmic balance. The multiverse contains forces of such immense evil that if left unchecked, they could extinguish all light, all hope, all freedom. Demon lords who dream of transforming every plane into extensions of the abyss. Archdevils who work to bring all of creation under the iron law of the nine hells. Dark gods who genuinely seek to unmake reality itself and replace it with eternal suffering. Against these threats, coordinated divine intervention becomes necessary to preserve existence itself. And historical records show that good-aligned deities have formed coalitions at critical moments to prevent such outcomes. These interventions often involve alliances between deities who normally have little to do with each other. When examining the historical record of such coalitions, patterns emerge that suggest coordination beyond what random chance would produce. When demon lords attempt to break through planar barriers, when archdevils' schemes threaten entire worlds, when dark gods coordinate attacks on the foundations of reality itself, responses emerge that involve precisely the right combination of divine powers needed to counter the specific threat. Whether this reflects fortunate timing, natural divine cooperation in the face of existential threats, or deliberate orchestration by powers skilled in divine diplomacy, remains a subject of ongoing theological debate. Other cosmic conflicts throughout history have shaped the balance between freedom and tyranny. The ancient wars between dragons and giants, struggles between various pantheons for dominance, conflicts with aberrations from the far realm, all have felt the influence of forces working to ensure that no single philosophy of domination achieves permanent victory. When giants sought to enslave dragonkind during the age when both races were young, resistance emerged that preserved draconic freedom and autonomy. When Elithids and Aboleths attempt to impose their alien tyrannies on humanoid civilizations, opposition consistently appears, often in the form of metallic dragons who seem remarkably well-informed about where these aberrant threats are most vulnerable. The pattern repeats across eons with notable consistency. Wherever tyranny emerges, in whatever form it takes, resistance appears at critical moments to prevent absolute domination. Tools needed to oppose oppression mysteriously become available to those brave enough to wield them. Intelligence about tyrants' vulnerabilities reaches the right people at the right time. Whether patterns shift to favor those fighting for freedom, ancient weapons perfectly suited to countering dark magic are discovered in ruins by heroes who just happened to be exploring there. These patterns occur with sufficient frequency across thousands of years and countless worlds that they suggest either extraordinary fortune consistently favoring just causes, or the operation of subtle influences working to ensure that tyranny always contains within itself the seeds of its own destruction. The cumulative effect of these interventions over millennia has fundamentally shaped the nature of the multiverse itself. Tyranny still exists, evil gods still scheme, dark empires still rise. But they can never achieve total victory, never extinguish all opposition, never create the eternal darkness they desire. This persistent limitation on tyranny's reach, this consistent pattern of resistance emerging at critical moments, this reliable tendency for oppression to generate its own downfall, could be interpreted as the greatest achievement of those who oppose tyranny. Not any single dramatic victory, but the patient, persistent, eternal work of ensuring that freedom always remains possible, even in the darkest ages. Every tyrant who falls, every dark scheme that collapses, every empire of oppression that crumbles into dust, adds evidence supporting the observable truth that freedom proves more resilient than slavery, that justice ultimately outlasts oppression, and that no darkness, however deep, has ever permanently extinguished the light. Section 5. The Eternal Vigil. The struggle continues in the current age, where new forms of tyranny emerge even as old ones crumble. You might believe that the great battles between good and evil belong to ancient history, that the modern era, with its established kingdoms and codified laws, has moved beyond the crude tyrannies of darker ages. This assumption, comfortable as it may be, overlooks how contemporary despots have learned to disguise their oppression behind sophisticated systems and reasonable-sounding rhetoric. Tyranny has evolved, adapting to cultures that claim to value freedom, while gradually eroding that freedom through methods more subtle than simple chains and whips. Historical patterns suggest that opposing modern tyranny requires different approaches than those that worked against ancient warlords and demon-worshipping cults. The current political landscape demonstrates how tyranny has learned to wear acceptable masks. Bane, fully restored to his divine status after consuming his son Zevim in 1372 Dale Reckoning, no longer inspires exclusively the crude dictatorships that announce their evil openly. His modern followers, based on observable patterns in how Banate organizations operate, often establish systems that claim to serve order and stability, while gradually concentrating power in fewer hands. They speak of necessary security measures, of sacrifices required for the common good, of the need for strong leadership in uncertain times. Their tyranny wears a reasonable face, making it harder for common citizens to recognize the danger, until the trap has already closed around them. Opposition to these sophisticated forms of oppression requires a different kind of champion. Where ancient heroes needed primarily martial prowess and courage to confront tyranny, modern champions require intellectual sophistication and social awareness. They must understand political systems well enough to identify how those systems are being corrupted. They must recognize propaganda and manipulation when they encounter it. They must build coalitions among diverse groups who might not naturally trust each other, but share common interests in preserving freedom. A paladin serving justice in the current age might spend more time in libraries and council chambers than on battlefields, wielding words and evidence as weapons against tyranny that cannot be defeated through swordplay alone. The rise of new powers in the post-Spellplague era created challenges that even millennia of experience could not fully anticipate. When Cyric murdered Mistra in 1385 Dale Reckoning and reshaped fundamental aspects of reality, he demonstrated that cosmic balance itself proves more fragile than many believed. The resulting chaos allowed various entities to seize power in ways that would have been impossible under the old divine order. Some of these new powers genuinely seek to repair the damage and restore stability. Others view the Spellplague's aftermath as an opportunity to establish tyrannies that the old divine hierarchies would have prevented. Distinguishing between reformers and exploiters requires careful observation of patterns over time, rather than accepting claims at face value. The network of metallic dragons continues to expand and evolve, adapting to serve modern needs while maintaining ancient purposes. Young gold dragons now study not just martial techniques and magical theory, but also the complex systems that govern modern societies. They understand that preventing tyranny in the current age requires comprehending how wealth concentration creates oligarchies, how information control enables propaganda, how legal systems can be twisted to serve oppression while maintaining the appearance of justice. These educated dragons operate within modern power structures, just as their ancestors infiltrated ancient courts. Though with sophisticated understanding of systems, their predecessors could never have imagined. Silver dragons have proven particularly adept at opposing tyranny in its contemporary forms. Their love of humanoid company and their exceptional shape-shifting abilities allow them to live entire lives as mortals, experiencing directly the effects of oppressive policies and systems. A silver dragon might spend a century working to help communities understand their collective power and teaching them strategies for resisting exploitation that stops just short of overt slavery. Another might work to uncover corruption and bring it to public attention before it can metastasize into full-blown tyranny. These dragons sacrifice the privileges of their true nature, living in relatively weak and short-lived forms, because they understand that opposing tyranny requires standing alongside its victims, rather than merely observing from positions of power. The theological implications of subtle influence against tyranny continue to generate debate among scholars and priests. Some argue that methods which involve arranging circumstances and guiding champions through indirect means verge too close to the manipulations practiced by evil deities. They point to instances where interventions caused unintended harm, where champions made choices that seemed right at the time, but led to unforeseen suffering. They ask difficult questions about free will and divine intervention, about whether mortals can truly claim credit for victories that deities orchestrated behind the scenes, about whether cosmic balance benefits from having good-aligned powers who think strategically about long-term opposition to tyranny. These theological criticisms receive no direct divine response, which some interpret as tacit acknowledgement, while others view as appropriate restraint. If tyrannical gods knew exactly how opposition operated, if they could identify patterns and predict interventions, they would develop countermeasures that would render existing strategies less effective. Uncertainty itself serves a purpose in maintaining cosmic balance, keeping enemies unsure about which setbacks result from natural consequences and which reflect more deliberate opposition. The relationship between divine influence and mortal free will remains the most challenging philosophical issue surrounding subtle interventions. When circumstances align favorably, when crucial information reaches the right people at the right time, when tools needed to oppose tyranny mysteriously become available, does this preserve mortal agency or reduce individuals to unwitting participants in cosmic strategies? Defenders of subtle intervention argue that creating conditions where right choices become possible differs fundamentally from removing choice itself. A slave still decides whether to rebel or submit, even if provided with tools that make rebellion feasible. A general still chooses whether to follow orders or turn against a cruel master, even if presented with evidence of that master's crimes. Critics counter that if influence determines outcomes, then the distinction between guidance and control matters less than it might initially appear. The truth likely exists somewhere between these philosophical extremes. Circumstances can be shaped, but choices cannot be controlled. Opportunities can be provided, but mortals cannot be forced to seize them. Certain outcomes can be made more likely, but nothing becomes truly inevitable. The multiverse remains fundamentally unpredictable despite the best efforts to guide it toward justice. And this unpredictability preserves genuine free will, even in the face of divine influence. A tyrant targeted by coordinated opposition might still succeed if they prove more adaptable than expected, if their victims fail to recognize opportunities provided to them, if random chance favors oppression over freedom at critical moments. Modern threats to cosmic balance come from sources that ancient prophecies never anticipated. the far realm, that alien dimension of madness existing beyond normal reality, occasionally spawns aberrations that recognize no cosmic order and care nothing for the balance between good and evil. Mind flayers and aboleths impose tyrannies that operate on such alien principles that traditional opposition strategies prove insufficient. New approaches to these aberrant threats require working with deities of knowledge and magic to understand entities whose very existence violates natural law. This adaptation demonstrates that even after eons of experience, effective opposition to tyranny requires continuous learning and evolution, recognizing that eternal vigilance demands eternal growth. The current generation of mortals in Faerun faces challenges that would have seemed unimaginable to their ancestors. Dark gods who were destroyed have returned. New deities have ascended to fill vacuums left by the spell plague. The boundaries between planes have weakened, allowing influences from outer realms to seep into the material plane more easily than ever before. Traditional power structures that maintained order for centuries have collapsed or been transformed beyond recognition. In this chaotic environment, tyranny finds new opportunities to establish itself, promising stability and security to populations exhausted by constant upheaval and change. This chaos creates both danger and opportunity. Yes, tyrannical forces can exploit instability to gain power. But instability also means that old tyrannies have lost their grip, that populations are more willing to consider new ways of organizing society, that innovative approaches to governance and justice might find acceptance where tradition-bound societies would have rejected them. The challenge lies in ensuring that this period of transformation leads toward greater freedom rather than new forms of oppression, that lessons learned from fallen empires inform the construction of more just systems rather than simply being forgotten in perpetual cycles of oppression and liberation. The never-ending nature of this struggle might seem discouraging if viewed from a mortal perspective, where individuals hope to solve problems permanently within their limited lifetimes. But on divine timescales, where the journey matters more than any imagined destination, the continuous nature of the struggle takes on different meaning. The goal is not to eliminate tyranny completely, because doing so would require eliminating free will itself, would require transforming mortals into beings incapable of choosing evil even if they wanted to. Instead, the purpose is ensuring that tyranny never achieves total victory, that every dark age contains the seeds of its own ending, that hope survives even in the bleakest hours of history. This perspective allows viewing temporary setbacks with equanimity that would be impossible for mortal champions. When carefully laid plans fail, when tyrants succeed despite all efforts to stop them, when darkness seems to triumph over light, the the struggle continues beyond any single victory or defeat. A tyrant who wins today plants the seeds of rebellion that will topple their dynasty in a generation. A dark god who gains followers now creates resentment among rival powers that will eventually turn against them. Every triumph of evil makes future victories of good more likely, because tyranny cannot sustain itself indefinitely without generating the resistance that will ultimately challenge it. Your own role in this eternal struggle matters more than you might realize. Attention is not reserved solely for mighty heroes and powerful champions. Every person who resists oppression in small ways, who refuses to cooperate with injustice, who maintains compassion and integrity in environments designed to crush such virtues, serves the cause of freedom, whether they know it or not. Small acts of defiance accumulate into larger patterns. Individual choices to do right contribute to social movements capable of toppling tyrants and transforming civilizations. The beggar you pass on the street corner might be more than they appear. Part of traditions where deities walk among mortals in humble disguise to observe how people treat those with less power. The opportunity to help someone in need might be a test to determine whether you deserve larger responsibilities that resisting tyranny sometimes requires. The seemingly chance encounter that leads you to important information might be anything but chance, might be one thread in a pattern so vast that even long-lived beings struggle to perceive its full extent. Living in awareness of these possibilities changes how you move through the world, makes you more attentive to opportunities for courage and compassion, more willing to take risks in service of justice, because you understand that forces you cannot detect might be supporting your efforts in unseen ways. The cosmic balance that good-aligned powers help maintain ultimately serves everyone, even those who do not acknowledge their influence. A multiverse where tyranny could achieve total victory would be a nightmare existence where oppression crushed all beauty, all creativity, all of the diversity that makes existence meaningful and worthwhile. By ensuring that freedom always remains possible, that resistance always finds a way, that darkness never completely extinguishes light. The work of opposing tyranny preserves conditions necessary for all beings to pursue their own visions of fulfillment. This is a gift to creation, offered without expectation of gratitude or recognition, provided simply because the multiverse should be a place where beings of all kinds can flourish, rather than merely survive under the heels of tyrants. The ancient dragons who serve in Mount Celestia continue their work across all the planes, eternally vigilant, eternally patient, eternally committed to the cause of freedom. They represent continuity across ages, living bridges connecting past to present to future, ensuring that wisdom accumulated over millennia informs contemporary responses to tyranny's newest manifestations. These great worms and the countless other metallic dragons who share their purpose have seen dark ages come and go, have witnessed the rise and fall of countless tyrannical empires, and they understand from direct experience that no oppression, however powerful it appears in the moment, can achieve permanent dominance over the desire for freedom that exists in mortal hearts. As you go forward from this moment, carrying knowledge of how subtle influences have shaped cosmic history, you might see the world differently. Political struggles that seemed random might reveal patterns. Tyrants might appear more vulnerable when you recognize that their own nature generates the resistance that will ultimately challenge them. Acts of kindness and courage might seem more significant when you understand that they contribute to accumulating forces that oppose oppression across vast scales of time and space. The traditions that speak of humble disguises and hidden influences remind us that appearances can be deceiving, that the beggar might be a king, that the weakest might prove strongest when tested. The eternal vigil continues, as it has since the first beings gained consciousness, and some chose to dominate while others chose to protect. Subtle interventions persist, patient strategies endure. Careful cultivation of circumstances that make tyrannies fall more likely carries on across all the planes. Champions will rise and fall, empires will prosper and crumble, ages will pass and be forgotten. Through it all, forces work to ensure that no matter how dark the night becomes, dawn always remains possible for those brave enough to fight for it. If you found value in exploring these hidden depths of the multiverse, if this journey through secret influences has given you new perspective on how cosmic forces shape mortal destinies, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. There are so many more mysteries waiting to be uncovered, so many other aspects of lore that deserve deeper examination than they typically receive. Join me in future explorations as we continue peeling back the layers of reality to discover the truths that shape the worlds where our adventures unfold. Until next time, may your own struggles against tyranny, however large or small they might be, find the support that makes victory possible even against overwhelming odds.